I'm back working on my Dodge Ram that I just bought at the auction. Last time we fixed the taillights, and when I started to replace the fuel injector, I noticed that the bumper seemed loose. The other thing I need to do, I noticed as I stepped on this bumper, it seemed to like move or give a little, so I do need to check out this bumper and see how well it's installed. That is one of the downsides to buying a truck that's been modified, is you never know if the modifications were done well or not. Now, I had noticed the dent in the bumper when I went to bid on the truck, but I really didn't think too much of it. It was just a little dent, and it looked like it was just a minor cosmetic defect. However, I really should have realized that that bumper is 1/8 inch thick steel. In order to put that much of a dent in the bumper, that must have taken a great amount of force. And all that force gets transmitted through the bumper and into the truck. I'm not really much of a welder, fabricator, but that don't look right to me. Something just seems kind of off about it. Can't really put my finger on it though. Maybe if we look at this side. Oh, wow. Actual bolts. The bumper is bolted to the mount, which is bolted to the frame. Huh. Who would have thought that? Well, there is a bolt here, but the bolt is welded to the mount and the bumper. And again, I'm not really much of a welder, but I think I can weld better than that. This has definitely been in some kind of accident. Need to figure something out with this. One issue that we're going to fix today hopefully you can see that that bumper is moving. Now, when I first looked at this truck at the auction, I saw this dent right here, but I didn't think too much of it. Oh, it's just a little dent. That doesn't change anything. It's fine. I should have realized, though, to put a big dent into this really thick metal bumper must take a great amount of force. And that force was all transferred onto the bumper mount, which is now just bent out of shape. And whoever had this truck before I did just welded it back together very haphazardly. I can also see where the hood and the fender may be tweaked as well, but that's not quite as big a deal. I think they used the screw part of a C-clamp to weld the bumper back together. I have to assume that this was a trail repair, that the welds were bad because someone was using a car battery and a set of jumper cables to stick weld the bumper back together. That is the only thing I can think of. Also, another thing, I'm no welder, but even I know that the bolt portion of a C-clamp, sort of like this, is made of hardened steel. Not the best thing to use for welding. If they had used the C-clamp portion of the C-clamp, that would have actually been better. The goal is to take this bumper off, take the bumper mounts off, and then bend that mount back into shape so that I can use bolts to bolt it all back together. And I've got brand new hardware for the bumper and the mount. It shouldn't actually be too difficult, but it didn't really register to me that the mount was made with 1/4 inch plate steel. But I very quickly realized after I got the mount off the truck that there is no way that I would be able to bend that mount back into shape with the tools that I had. Well, maybe I'm just too optimistic. I got the bracket off and it wasn't that hard, and I started to bend back the part on the frame where the bracket attaches to, and that's going okay. So that can easily be done. However, when it comes to this bracket, it's 1/4 inch plate steel. And I've tried heating it up and I just can't get it bent back. Now, if I had a good vise that was properly anchored and I had a hotter torch like a map gas and I had a pipe wrench with a 2 or 3 foot handle on the end, maybe I could get this back into shape. But the other thing is, I started to notice the little crack right here, and it's hard to tell whether the welding has started to separate anywhere else. And honestly, it's just easier to make a new one of these. So that's what we're doing. I got the bumper loaded up because it was easier just to throw it in the back than to reattach it to the truck. And I am going to a friend's place to create a new bumper mount. It's probably what I should have done in the first place, but hindsight's 20/20. I traced and measured the pieces of the bracket onto the steel plates, then cut the pieces out with a cutoff wheel. I also cut off the piece of the C-clamp somewhere in there and did my best to bend the mounting surface on the truck back into shape. Got that piece all cut out.
Nice.
And the triangle is still hot.
Nice. Seems like it's going well. Only really 2 sides left.
Yep. Yeah, and I imagine the corners will just have to grind down.
Yeah, we got enough discs.
After the pieces were cut out, it was time for my friend to weld them. He used flux core wire to tack the pieces together, but because we didn't have welding gas, he had to stick weld the rest of the bumper. Now, don't rag on his welding. If anything, rag on me because I had someone else do it instead of doing it myself. Overall, I think he did a good job.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die.
Not quite as good, but better than the what they did.
Yeah, better than what was on there.
It was hard to control it because I kept like squishing.
Yep.
Swing those hips around.
I think this is improved. It's not particularly pretty,
Yeah.
but it's more uniform.
Yep. Now, when it comes to drilling the holes, we had a problem. The holes on the old mount allowed for some adjustment, but we didn't have the capability to make those kind of wide holes. So we needed the bumper in place and attached to the good mount in order to figure out where the holes need to be for the new mount. But by this point, what was supposed to be a quick job had already stretched into the night. So we didn't bother filming it, we just measured up the holes, drilled them. Once the holes were drilled, and by some miracle they lined up, we were able to get the bumper mounted well enough for me to drive home, and then the next day I put on the rest of the hardware. So I got home late last night, but we got the bumper on and installed. This side looks really good, it's lined up pretty well. I think the bumper itself might still be a little tweaked because this side doesn't line up quite so well, but I mean, that's a perfect place to drill a hole for to mount a flag if you're going through the dunes, or to mount an antenna, so I'm cool with it. Overall, it's sturdy, it's bolted on there with grade 8 hardware instead of the grade 5 that it had, and I think it's good to go. I also got this light mount back where it needs to be, so I can mount a light on there as well. And yeah, pretty good. Pretty satisfied with it. The frame is still a little messed up right there, but we got it good enough. We got it to where all the bolts go in here, all the bolts go in over here. Those line up, and so it's 4 3/8 inch grade 8 bolts, washers on both sides, and I need to put a lock washer on there. All the lock washers are on this side, and I got one lock washer on here, but the top 2 bolts need a lock washer for the bumper. The bumper is 3 1/2 inch bolts. I upgraded the bolts to grade 8. This plate is the one we made, and luckily it's not very visible because it's not the prettiest thing in the world. But if it works, it works. But by the time we got everything test fit and we knew that it was gonna work, it was getting late, so we just put on all the bolts, didn't put on all the lock washers, and just so that I could drive home. So today I'm just gonna go through each and every bolt, make sure that we've got the bolt nut and a washer on each side and a lock washer, and that it's all tightened up. And then this bumper will be officially done. Unless I decide to add a winch. Oh, and I'm also definitely adding shackles to the front, but that's easy. Oh, and I'm also adding lights here, so the bumper will be officially mounted, not done. I decided to upgrade the mounting hardware from grade 5 to grade 8. I did this because I needed to buy new hardware anyway for the side that didn't have any, and also for the hardware that was there, the bolts looked too short, so I wanted to get slightly longer bolts. The grade 8 bolts will be stronger and less likely to shear if I have to recover the truck or if I eventually put a winch on the bumper. In reality, the failure point will be the stock mounting points on the frame of the truck. However, it gives me a little bit of extra security, plus it's shiny.